All right. Welcome to this month's monthly feature recap webinar. Before we get started, let's give everyone a minute to hop in. Looks like we got a lot of people joining right now. Let's do a sound check. Can you guys hear me? Drop it in the chat. Perfect. Everyone can hear me. So now that I know you can hear me, drop in where you're calling in from. Michigan. Let's see. Ohio. A lot of Canada, Texas. Okay, I'm gonna have trouble reading all these. I'm not gonna go through them all. Uh, all over. We got people from all over. I love this. Okay, good engagement in the chat. Got a lot of people in here. We got almost 100 people in the webinar right now. So let's go ahead and get started. So, if you haven't done one of these before, this is our monthly recap webinar. In this webinar, we talk through a lot of the new features we recently released, as well as what's coming up next. And it's a great opportunity for you guys to learn more about the features, but also give your feedback. So if you have suggestions, you have questions, drop it in the chat, and we're going to go through them. So this is the monthly recap webinar for February, and we had a lot of big updates. As a lot of you probably know, which we just announced, we also just released the recap feature, which we're going to talk about at the end of the webinar to help you manage uncategorized transactions. I want to save time for the other ones and then a lot of time at the end to talk about that one because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions about it. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first feature we want to cover, let me pull up my screen. All right, let's share. Can everyone see my screen? Perfect. All right. So the first feature we are going to cover is bulk downloading files. So a lot of you guys that are using our document management piece or storing a lot of documents on the client profile, you can now bulk download documents. So for example, if I go into this folder, I can select multiple documents and download them all. You can even download folders, right? So I could down this folder, which has files in it. I could download this folder as along with all the other documents, which makes it really easy to download a bunch of documents, but also get your documents out of Financial Sense if you ever need to. So in theory, if you really wanted to, you could go to a client and download all their folders and sub documents in one click. So other than bulk downloading, you can also bulk move documents now. So if we go back in here, let's say we want to move these 3 documents to this folder. You can easily select them and then drag. And you'll see it says 3 items are selected. And you can just drag it into that folder. What's also cool is you can also move it to other folders that are not within this exact folder structure. So if I wanted to select multiple documents or even this folder, I could click Move and then see the entire folder structure for that client. And I can open up, let's find a better one. I can open up this folder structure and then get really deep. Here we go. And then move them all to this folder here, for example. Move. And then those will now be moved to that folder. Okay. As you can see, they've been moved now. So 2 things just to make the document management a little bit easier is just the bulk moving and bulk downloading documents. Are there any questions about that feature? You cannot move the documents to another client. It has to stay within the client. But that is a good request. Okay, looks like we don't have any questions on that, so let's go on to the next thing. Next, we're going to talk about pushing changes to future recurrences. This is a big one. So inside Financial Sense, before we made this update, for you to be able to, let's say you modify one of your projects. So let's find one. This is the good one. Okay. So let's say you're in this monthly bookkeeping project. Reopen it. And you make a change to it, right? So maybe you add a new task, or you edit a task, or you add a resource, or maybe you add a new client task. If this project already has future recurrences that are already created, you can click this to update those future recurrences. Now, the reason this is important is because before, if the future recurrences were not already created, it would automatically update those future recurrences when they're created. But in this situation, this project was for February, right? The March version of this project has already been created. So given it's already been created, the future recurrences are being created. Now, when you make changes, you have the ability to update that future recurrence if you want to. Now, one thing to note is if you do update that future recurrence, you click update, it will delete the future recurrence and recreate it. So that's how it's going to work. So you'll see it disappear, but it'll come back and once the project has recurred. And this just makes it to keep your future workflows up to date and ensure that when you're updating a project, that you know that the future occurrences are going to have that. Okay, so we got some questions. A lot of people love this update. Oh yeah, you can also bulk download client task files. I forgot to mention that. You can't update attachments on future recurrences. So this is a really good question. So right now, the things that allow you that trigger this banner to be displayed is when you update a task, right? So specifically, that's if you add a new task, change a subtask, change add or edit a description on the task, or change the task title. There's also client tasks. If you add or edit a client task, the banner will appear. And resources. If you add or edit a resource, it will appear. But we have seen some people want it for other actions. So for example, like maybe you edit the due date on a task, or you add an automation to a task. You want that to appear. Or you change the way the project recurs. You want that banner to appear. I'm kind of curious, drop it in the chat. Like, what are other things that you want to see trigger that banner to show so you can make sure you update the future recurrences? So like some examples are people want it to be if you change the order of the tasks, if you add a due date, change the due date, change the assignee. Let's see. So Leonardo, that's a really good question. We are working on the ability to do this for templates. So if you update a workflow template, you could push it to work created from that template. I believe we're working on that in Q2, but it's going to work very similar to this. Okay, perfect. Yeah, same for you, Mark. I saw you ask the same question. We're really excited about that one, pushing templates to projects. That's going to be a big feature. We know a lot of you want it. It's going to make it easy to maintain and keep your workflows up to date. Okay, so it doesn't look like there's any feedback or questions. Actually, wait, there's some stuff in Q&A. Yes, client task folders can be uploaded in bulk, downloaded in bulk. Okay, so let's move on to the next feature. The next feature is another popular one, and it's the ability to filter by accounting period. So this has been a popular request from our users. So now you'll see this accounting period filter on your workflow dashboard. So you can select this. You can select the type of period you want to move filter for. So let's say it's monthly, and let's say March of 2024. You apply this, and now it's going to show projects that are for that accounting period, March 2024. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. But this is another filter to give you guys more visibility in your workflow so you can really track the type of work you want to track. You cannot filter by creation date yet. Filter by reviewer. Okay, it's good feedback. Filter on task due date. You can't filter on task due date. This is something we've been looking at, though. Okay, so there is a question. I'm going to go back real quick to client tasks. So if you go to client tasks and you have multiple documents, you will see the ability to download all of the client documents uploaded by a client. I think something someone else is also requesting is in the Files tab. Here, you want the ability to download all, which we do not have. But that is something we can look at adding. That's some good feedback. You can only really do the download all function in the firm files tab here. So by selecting here, but there isn't a way to do that with the client task files that you can view here, but you can download all client task files on the project, if that makes sense. So the filter by tax preparer and due date would be great. That makes sense. So it sounds like you guys want the ability to be able to filter by roles. So on the templates, you can put role placeholders. So if you have tax preparer on a project or reviewer or admin, you want to be able to filter by that. Okay, roles. Okay, looks like all right. I'll add that to the list as some feedback to discuss with the team and see if that's something potentially we could add. Okay, so let's go on to the next feature. Now, so if you guys are on the scale plan, one of the popular features is the ability to trigger emails by tasks being completed. So in this example is, let's see if we have one of these automations. Let's go to this template. Templates, 1040 tax return. So now what you can do on templates is add those automations for triggering an email to be sent to a client when a task is completed. So for example, file tax return with the IRS. You can add a task automation here to send an email to a client. You can choose one of the email templates that you've created. So let's do the 1040 tax filing update, notifying them that you filed their 1040 tax return. You can hit save. So now you can add these on the workflow templates. So when you use this template to create work, this task will automatically have that task automation on it and will notify the selected contacts. And this goes into the next update. The next update we did was when this task is completed and there is an automation that will automatically send an email to your client or the templated email to your client, it will warn you that's going to happen. So when you click this, it will say send email to client. There's an email automation added to this task. Therefore, completing this task will notify your client. Do you want to send it? And you can hit confirm. So it just lets you know in the background what's happening so you are aware that that automation is there. There isn't a way to skip the email automation, but that is something that we can look at. I'm curious with everyone else on this webinar, is that something you would want? Would you want to be able to not send the email for a specific reason? Just because it's either to complete it, you have to send the email, but maybe the ability to say skip the email send. Okay. A lot of yeses there. That's really good feedback. Okay, let me make note of that. Okay. Is there a way to remove certain contacts? Yes, Tracy, if you want to remove certain contacts from the automation, you can, but you have to do it after the project is created. So you could delete and recreate that automation and just select specific contacts. Okay, drag and drop for client tasks. For warning. Okay. You don't have to send to all contacts. you can, so when you're creating an automation, so let's say we just do it for, I'm going to do it on this one. You can see here that I can select the contacts I want to send it to on the client. Okay, so it looks like we got some questions in Q&A. So Anita, if you ever want to save a workflow filter, you can, when you apply the filter, say for this example, you can then hit save. And when you save this, you can call it a certain view. So let's say it's March work. And you can even apply it as a default view. So every time you log in a financial sense, it's going to be the view that's automatically displayed to you by default. And you can do that for any of these filters. You can use all these filters together and create save views, and then easily choose and select those save views. So when you do copy a project to another client, or you use a template to create for multiple clients, all those automations will automatically be set up. We could look at adding a warning, but I would have to discuss that with the team, just to remind you to update those contacts if needed. Okay. We use, is there an, I love the pizza tracker analogy. A lot of people love the email automated emails as like a pizza tracker for like tracking when your food's going to deliver. It's basically what it is. It's a great way to keep your clients updated on the status of work. Um, there isn't another way to get to the automations though. It has to be uh, through the tasks. Okay, so let's go on to the next feature. Actually, hold on. The next feature will be recats. So let's make sure we got all our questions answered before we move on. So can a client, Suzette, could you provide some more context what you mean by can a title box be added to a client contact? Um, when you are in a, I'm not exactly sure what you mean, but when you are in a contact, you can name them, and then have the contact information. Jennifer, we are planning to add the ability to see current tasks due like dates on the project's home screen. So it can help you really better prioritize by the due date of the up next task. Yeah. First and last name fields on contacts is something we do have on our roadmap, but yes, you can't do right now. Okay, Suzette, I get what you mean. So you want the ability to say whether they're a president, a bookkeeper, or an admin. That's actually, I like that idea a lot. I'm going to add that to the list. That might be something that can make it easier to differentiate the contacts, especially for the automations. I do have a question for everyone, though. So do you guys agree that it would be good to have the role? So maybe when you're creating an automation on a template, instead of it adding to all contacts, you could say, send this task to the president or the bookkeeper. Or would it be better just to have a primary contact on each client? It's a little easier to set up. It's not as detailed. If you have a primary contact, you can just choose whether you want the primary contact or all contacts to be notified on the templates. Which is better, the roles or the primary contact? Looks like we got a little bit of both. So what I'm probably going to do is if you are the user community, I'll make a poll in the user community. That way we can actually see how the odds stack up against each other. So I'm going to make a note to do that. Okay. So let's now move on to the feature that I've been really excited to talk to everyone about, because I know this is something that a lot of you are really excited about and that can provide a lot of value to your firm. So next, we're going to talk about our new recaps feature. We just released it today. And basically, if you don't know what it is, it helps you manage your uncategorized transactions. So if you find yourself constantly having to download all the uncategorized transactions for a client into a spreadsheet, and then send that spreadsheet to the client, and then follow up with the client to ask them, hey, what was this transaction for? And then once they eventually respond, go back and update it in your QuickBooks Online. Um, it's a pain in the butt, right? It takes a lot of work. And when you have a lot of clients you do this for, it can really add up and slow your team down. So we recently released a feature that helps streamline and automate this process inside Financial Sense. So I'm going to show you guys how this feature works. I'm going to pull up. So when you're inside a client in Financial Sense, you will now see a new tab called Transactions, and it'll say New, so it stands out. When you click this, you'll be able to integrate with your QuickBooks Online account. So this is an already integrated account. Let me show you what it looks like on a different, when it's not integrated. So when it's not integrated, it'll look like this, right? And you can integrate it with QBO. So once you do the integration, and one thing to note is you may already have your clients integrated with QuickBooks Online for time tracking or to import them in, but this is a different, deeper integration. So you will still have to manually integrate this for each client you want to use the feature with, right? So you'll integrate, you'll select your firm, and then you'll select the client you want to integrate it with. So once it's integrated, it's going to ask you, what are your uncategorized transactions accounts for that specific client, right? We'll pull these by default: uncategorized income, uncategorized expense, and uncategorized asset. But you will have the ability to add other uncategorized accounts that you've created or customized for a client. And what it will also ask you, which is important, is what you'll see here is which clients you want to ask these, which contacts on the client you want to ask about the uncategorized transaction, as well as which team members do you want to be notified when the client ever gives you an answer or uploads a document for an uncategorized transaction. So that's all part of the setup process. I'm not showing you that piece right now because I already have it integrated, but once you integrate it, you will see this on your view. So when it's integrated, it will automatically pull the transactions in your uncategorized accounts and display them here. So as they come in, they'll always be visible here inside Financial Sense on the client. When you're in here, if you know what to categorize, what it should be categorized as, you or your team member can easily select the account. So let's just say this is automobile, right? We know, and approve it. And it will update that uncategorized transaction inside QuickBooks Online and categorize it in the category you choose. But most of the time, the reason they're here is because you don't know what they are and you need to ask the client, but you don't want to chase down the client. You don't want to have to email them and they never respond. So so what you can do is you can easily ask the client about the transaction by sending it to our client portal. So you can click share to share the transactions you want the client to see. So these have now been sent and are viewable in the client portal. Once you have shared the transactions, you'll want to notify your client, right? So you can click send now to send your client an email that will let them know there are some transactions for them to review in our client portal. So you hit send now. Now, one thing to note is you'll also want to set up client reminders. So what this does is will automatically remind your clients, just like client tasks, to review the transactions and provide their feedback until they actually get it done. So if you click auto reminders here, you can say, hey, I want to remind the client every 5 days to review those transactions until they get it done. So you don't have to chase down the client yourself. And then you can also, again, manage which contacts on the client get notified and hit done. So now the client will be able to view the transactions. So next, what I want to show you is what the client sees. But before I do that, I'm sure there's some questions in the chat. There's a lot of questions in the chat. Let's go through them real quick. So, but I'm going to save questions about the client experience for when we go over the client experience. So, Tracy, that's a really good question. I'm going to save that for later. I'm going to ask about ability to adding transactions that are not in QuickBooks Online. So let's see. And if I don't get to all questions, I'm sorry. There's a lot of them in here. I'm gonna try to get to them the best I can. So there's not a class field yet, but so this is the first iteration of our uncats feature. We plan to add a bunch of other functionality, right? So some of those features include the ability to select a class, um, like the ability when we'll show you to bulk approve, bulk categorize. Also, one really cool feature is the ability to auto push them to share them to the portal. So maybe like the transactions just come in automatically, and you don't want to have to go to the client every week and manually share them. You can, if you prefer, to turn on the ability to auto push all uncategorized transactions to the portal and notify the client. That's something we're going to be working on. So it's just happening in the background. Can you ask a different account other than okay? Yes. Yes, so you can add different accounts for uncategorized transactions by selecting them here. You can bulk share. So in this example, I could mass select these and bulk share them or unshare them with the client and bulk approve. So it won't work for desktop clients yet, but this is something we're going to talk about. What if there was ability to manually add transactions here or upload transactions and share them to the portal as well? So you still would have to add them in here. They're not going to automatically be pulled from your other system, but you won't have to chase down the client. Got a lot of these answered. Let's see the memos. So one thing to note is you don't see it here, but if there is a memo on the transaction already or a description, that would be displayed here below the memo. So you would be able to see what the description on the transaction. But for these, it just with my demo account, you can't see them. And the bank, and when you do update this, it won't remove the bank transaction description, which we'll talk about. So they will stay on this dashboard until they're approved, but the status will be waiting on client. So you will have like status for uncategorized, waiting on client, and ready to review, which you'll see in a second. Okay, so now let's go look at the client view. So your client, when you send that notification, they're going to get an email that looks like this. It's going to have your firm's logo. It's just like the client request email, right? And it'll ask them to view the transactions. When they click this, it's going to take them into that same client portal they use for documents, they use for client requests. So it'll take them into here. Let me refresh this. So they're going to see this transactions tab now on the client portal. Again, this is the same client portal that your clients are coming to for requests, where they can come to see shared folders and now transactions. Because our goal, right, is to create a single portal for your clients. You don't want your clients to have to go to a portal for uncategorized transactions, for documents, for requests, for billing. And our goal is to create that single source of truth for your clients, like we did for your team, which creates a better client experience, right? Because if you have your client going to 2 or 3 different portals, they're going to get confused and they're just probably just going to continue to send stuff via email, which is inefficient for your firm. So it's in the same portal for client requests. They'll be able to then view the transactions here that you shared with them. They can upload documents or receipts to the transaction. They can chat with you, right, about the transaction, ask questions, provide additional contacts, and they can just tell you what the transaction's for, right? So they can say, this is for car wash. So they're telling you right now what the transactions are for. When they've done providing the feedback or adding the documents or comments, they can then send it back to you to notify you that they have reviewed the transactions and provided the information that you need. Now, one thing to note is we know sometimes clients, even though you would think they would click the send updates button, they don't always do it, right? Just like they don't always complete the task for client requests. So the reason we have this is just so every time they make an update, it doesn't send you 3 notifications in financial sense. It's one bulk notification. However, if they do not click the send updates button after a certain period of time, I don't know the exact time, I think it's 15 minutes, it will still send you a notification. So you don't have to depend on your clients clicking this button every time. And if they ever make a change, right, they can send it again to send. Okay, so now that is the client experience, right? They have the ability to view the transactions, upload receipts, documents, ask questions, communicate with you, and tell you what the transaction is for. What then happens is you get notified inside Financial Sense. So if we go back to Financial Sense and refresh our screen, you're going to now see that all these transactions are ready for review. You can see what the client wrote in here. You can override it, add more context. You would be able to see the comments with the client. So if I go back, you'll be able to see the comments with the client, you can ask questions, and you'd be able to see the documents that they uploaded and be able to view them. So now that you have the context, right, you can then categorize it. So let's just say this is automobile for all of them. And then you can approve them and send them to QuickBooks Online. So, and then you're done. It's that simple. So what happens is when you approve that transaction, it will update it in QuickBooks Online to that correct category. So you don't have to go into QuickBooks Online and do it. But it will also send the information that was in that memo. So we had car wash in the other contacts, and it will send the documents and attach it to that transaction. So you have that context when you're looking at the transaction in QuickBooks Online and can reference it. And that essentially is how the recats feature works. So we're going to go to questions, but before I do that, I want to mention how we price this. So when we talk to a lot of the users in the beta test, we try to figure out a way to price this because we are looking at this as an add-on that's outside of like the practice management subscription. So if you're interested in this feature, it is going to be $4 a month per client that you use it with. So like if you have 100 clients, but you're not going to use it with all 100 clients, you're not going to get charged for all 100 clients. You have to manually turn it on for each client, and it'll be $4 a month. So if you have 10 clients you're using this feature with, it's $40 a month to use it with those 10 clients. So that's how we're pricing it as an add-on. But here's the thing. We are doing a special just because this is a new feature. We want to get feedback. We want to give you guys a chance to really test it out. Is for March, this month, we're giving 2 months free if for the first 100 firms that implement it and start using it and test it out. So if you get in, you're one of the first 100 firms in the month of March, you can get 2 months free and you don't have to pay anything until after that expires. So that is how the features works. Let's go to questions. If you guys have any questions about the feature or any feedback on how to improve it, right? This is the first iteration. So let me go back and say like some of the things we're going to be adding, we plan to add already. So some of the things we plan to do is the ability to pick classes. Someone had mentioned that, asked about that already. The ability to actually create like vendors and categories from inside Financial Sense. So like if there's a new category you need to create or a new vendor, you can create those within Financial Sense without having to go to QBO to do that. The ability to auto push transactions to the portal, like we talked about. So on a certain schedule, like maybe every second Friday of the month or specific day of the month, you can share all uncategorized transactions to the portal for the client to view. We have bulk approve already, but the ability to bulk categorize transactions. And then even someone mentioned the ability for your team to communicate on transactions. So not just communicate with the client, but the team members can communicate about a transaction as well. So just like team chat on a project, on a transaction. Okay, so let's go to chat. And then we'll also open the floor to any feedback. So let's see some questions. Wireless, the Excel document needs to be. Okay. There are no updates on FC billing. That is something we're going to be working on releasing later this year. Bulk recategorization, that's going to be something we're going to be looking to add in the future. I do want to reiterate, like the clients can tell you like what the transaction is for, but they can't actually change the category, right? We are looking at potentially giving you guys the ability to let your good clients choose the category, but either way, even if they can choose the category, if that's something we add in the future, you will have to be able to approve it before it goes to QuickBooks Online. So we would never let your clients choose the category and it update in QBO because that would create a mess for your books. Okay. Okay. I want to ask a question about this feature, right? So right now you can pull uncategorized transactions from QuickBooks Online automatically, which is great because a lot of your clients use QuickBooks Online, but a lot of you use other systems. You still use desktop with your clients. And so we've been thinking about how can we let you ask about those types of transactions? And what we're thinking is the ability to manually add transactions. So let's say, for example, like you get a spreadsheet from your bookkeeping system of uncategorized, like you export all the uncategorized transactions. What if you could just upload those in here and then they would all be displayed and then you can share them to the portal, ask about them, get the feedback, and then approve them and then download them and update them in the system or update them manually. Is that something you guys would want? Is there a lot of value in being able to like add mass import uncategorized transactions, but also just manually add them one-on-one because maybe you're not using QuickBooks Online with a client? Okay. And do you think like is it better just to have one-on-one, like manually add them one-on-one, or do you want like are you typically gonna like export a spreadsheet from desktop and then want to be able to import it so you don't have to, okay, bulk enter. What if we need them? I mean, you could essentially add any type of transaction in there. It doesn't have to be uncategorized transaction, Mary. Um, Especially if we have the ability to manually add them. Okay. Transactions must be accepted as opposed to be sitting waiting. So Paula, the transactions would need to be approved to be sent to QuickBooks Online, if that answers your question. Uh, Tracy, you would have to like select the category get the transactions for before you approve it to send it to the right account inside QuickBooks Online. Okay. So that being said, are there any other questions about the recap feature before we move on to some of the new things that we're working on to be coming next? So Chris, that's interesting. The ability to hide a client task. That's something we can look at. I will say this, one feature we are looking to add to the recap feature is the ability to hide recaps that are maybe really old that you don't want to view that are just sitting in the uncategorized transaction account for some reason. So it's not cluttering the screen. Laurel, it doesn't allow you to add GST from my knowledge, but if you can reach out to the support team, we'll look deeper into that. I'm not actually sure what you mean with that request, but we can take a deeper look and better understand it. Let's see, this anything. Once we download the client list, that multiple clients can be there. You can add multiple clients to the same portal, but you can add multiple contacts of a specific client to the same portal. So for example, this client has 3 contacts. I can give all 3 contacts access to that portal, the transactions, the requests, and documents. But I can't give 3 clients access to one portal, if that makes sense. And that's just mainly for security reasons. Okay, so let's now talk about some of the things we're working on next. So one of the big ones that our team is working on is the Documents tab. So now that you guys have the ability, let's go to a better client. The ability to, store your documents in folders, move them around, download them, share them with clients. We're starting to build out this place where a lot of your documents can live, your client documents, and even potentially your firm documents. So something we're looking at adding is a Documents tab over here. And when you click that tab, it's basically going to list all your clients' folders. So you'll see a folder for each client. But at the top, you'll also have a document for your internal firm documents. So you have your internal firm folder and all your client folders. And then within there, you and your team can access all the documents for clients. You can store and access documents internally for your firm, really creating like a single source of truth for your firm. So when they're doing work or if they need to access client or firm documents, they can easily do that. And what's really cool is when we have that and if you are using it inside Financial Sense, when you add a client to Financial Sense, it automatically creates that client folder. So you don't have to do all that admin work. There's going to be a lot of really cool capabilities because it's just going to be deeper integrated inside of our product. So that is something we're working on, and we're going to continue to add improvements to. So the other thing outside of that is we know that you may not want to use our DMS system. You may still want to use Google Drive, OneDrive, ShareFile, etc. That's why we are also going to be integrating with other document management systems. Right now, two integrations that we're working on and we're making progress on and hope to release soon. Actually, we will be releasing some of them in beta, is the OneDrive and Google Drive integration. So let me tell you what that's going to look like. Basically, inside Financial Sense, on a client profile or a project, let's see if we can find a good example. You see how you have this Smart Vault? Like if you integrate with Smart Vault, you can click this to access a Smart Vault folder. So if you integrate with Google Drive, you'll be able to link your clients with the client folder in Google Drive or OneDrive. And then from in here, you'll see that client folder in Google Drive or OneDrive. You'll be able to click it, and then you'll open up the Google Drive folder or OneDrive folder for that client from in the work and from in the client. So your team can easily access the client's documents if you're using Google Drive or OneDrive. Another really cool piece about that integration is that it's also going to allow you to, when you add a new client to Financial Sense, automatically create that full client folder in Google Drive or OneDrive. So you don't have to go and create it manually. So it cuts down on that admin work. So that is 2 integrations that we're making a lot of progress on and hope to be releasing really soon. But that's just the first iteration, right? There's a lot of other things we want to do with those integrations. So some ideas that we're thinking about, right, is maybe, I'd actually like to hear if you guys think this would be valuable. The ability to back up all your documents inside Financial Sense to Google Drive or OneDrive, if you have that integration in place. Would that be valuable? Very much, it looks like. All right. Let's see. Okay. Now let me ask you this. Do you guys see, so like what we've talked about with the first version of the integration, we want the ability for you to open up a Google Drive folder from inside Financial. So you would see like that Google Drive or OneDrive folder name here, and you could click it and it opens it up in another tab. That seems valuable, but would it be more valuable if you could actually view all the Google Drive folders for that in that client folder inside Financial Sense without leaving? Does it make that big of a difference to have it actually inside the app? Okay, I'm seeing a little split decisions. Some people like it, some people don't think it's necessary. So you guys do essentially see value in just the ability to be able to have all those client folders auto-linked on the work for your team to be able to easily access it. Yes, you can have multiple Google Drive folders linked to the work or the client. Okay. So the next thing we're talking about is with client tasks. So if you use client requests, right, and your clients upload a document to Financial Sense, do you guys see value in the ability to automatically have those documents that are uploaded to the client tasks be sent to Google Drive or OneDrive if you have that integration, and choose a folder that it gets sent to? So even though they're being uploaded to Financial Sense and you're requesting that information to our portal, it can be automatically stored in Google Drive and OneDrive in a folder of your choice. Yes, please. Perfect. Okay, so it looks like we're on track with that. So that's some of the things that we're planning to work on with those integrations. I want to be clear, some of those won't be available in the first version, right? The first version, what we're really looking at is the ability to view the folders here, open them, and also the ability to auto create the client folder in the Google Drive or OneDrive account. Okay, so that's everything. We've talked about some of our new releases, including the big recap feature. So if you guys are interested in the recaps feature, go check it out. First 100 firms to actually start using it, get it free for 2 months. So if that's something you're actually interested in, I would recommend that you look at it sooner rather than later. And we also talked about some of the things we're working on next, or some of the major things. We've got a lot of other things in the works, but those are some of the big things that we see coming next with our releases in Financial Sense. That being said, before we go, are there any last questions? Let's see. So Google Drive and OneDrive, I don't have an ETA yet. I can't give you a specific date, but I know that we are starting uh, to beta test it. So, but it still needs a lot of work. If you are interested in being a beta tester and you want to give us feedback on those features, we would be open to potentially letting you beta test. Just reach out to our support team and we can take a look at that. So there isn't a way to merge clients yet. But this is a big problem we've seen that a lot of firms have, is that they're having duplicate clients creating our system through some of the integrations. And we are working on something to detect duplicates as well as to merge duplicate clients. And this is going to be coming with, as we integrate with more of the apps, we want to make sure this doesn't become an issue. So this is something we are working on, Kira. There wouldn't be a way, Christelle, to where if you have them upload the documents to Google Drive for a client task, it would mark the client task completed. If you want that, I would recommend, especially if we have the Google Drive integration, having them upload it to Financial Sense on the client task, which would then automatically push it to Google Drive. And that way they know to complete the task. So Abdullah, my co-founder, he said it in the chat. We plan to have Google Drive and OneDrive available this month. I didn't want to say it, but it looks like it's going to be coming this month. So it's something you guys will definitely be able to try out soon. And I want to say that's the first version, right? So it's not going to have all the features we talked about. It's really just going to have the ability to access the folders from inside Financial Sense by clicking them, as well as creating the client folder in the system. Okay. I think we got everything. If we didn't answer your questions, just please reach out to chat support. We can definitely do that. If you have questions about the new recap feature, also reach out to chat support. I want to thank everyone for joining us this week. And I'll see you guys next month at our monthly recap webinar. Take care, everyone.